My last document is not going to fall in the big categories of accounts and narrative documents. It falls in the category of other, I would say. And other is the vast number of things that got written down before you had the internet, certainly, and before you had an extensive printing press and cheap way to distribute information. And so people who are going to be entering the maritime business, particularly those who had to be educated to learn navigation and to learn the intricacies of trade, often wrote down their own textbooks, if you will, often very beautifully. So this one, the covers had a bit of a rough life, but it's bound in a very nice glazed satin. And if we open the page, what we find is titled The Memorandum of Eastern Markets. So this is a person who didn't put his name anywhere in the book, as much as I wish he did. He was at sea on a ship that was bound to China and other ports in the Far East in the 1830s. We know that because the first half of the book he used as sort of a brief account, but not the kind of thing you take as a captain. What he's done here in this Memorandum of Eastern Markets is written down for future reference, everything you would need to know in order to trade. So here we start with Batavia on the island of Java. Where it is, it's situated on the north side of the island. It's subject to the laws and regulations of the government of the Netherlands. Other ports that have the same regulations in case you happen to call it them. And then we get down into the nuts and bolts, so harbor regulations. Notice he's writing not like we've seen hastily, but in a very neat hand here. So all vessels coming into Batavia, all vessels coming into the port shall show this flag previous to coming in, show their flag previous to coming to anchor. So let folks know who you are. Square rig vessels have specific things they need to do. The harbor master or officer acting as such will send on board every vessel the following requests or questions for answering. So what is your flag? Where are you from? What's the name of the vessel? Who is the captain? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it actually goes on for several pages and all of the things you're going to need to do before you can actually set a foot ashore in Batavia. And if we skip ahead, let's go to Singapore instead. We get slightly fewer harbor regulations. We get a description. This port is situated on the island of Singapore. It's at the center of an immense native trade from China, Cochin China, Siam, and the islands of the Eastern Archipelago and the Straits of Malacca is increasing very fast. So for future reference for this guy, Singapore is a place you might want to develop a cargo for in the future because more and more people are trading here. This port is perfectly free, there being no import duties, no export duties, or port charges. So the section on what you have to do to trade there is much shorter. However, we keep going. The currency of Singapore is dollars and cents. That's handy. But the weights, we have pickets and caddies. The picket is 100 caddy or 133 1/3 English pounds. So, remember that 133 1/3, except for rice and salt, which are sold by Cayennes, and gold dust, which is sold by the Bunkel. The things you might need to know all over the world as you're interacting with cultures that have developed different systems of weights and measure, it's helpful to know what you're dealing with as you're trying to negotiate your cargo in foreign ports. Then we get notes on what will sell. American drillings, I think we're talking about a kind of textile here. They're the most saleable. Our sheetings, so like very basic textiles, they don't seem to take. So, don't load up a cargo of bedsheet material and expect to sell it. Bedsheet material that would probably be made by cotton grown in the American South and shipped up to northern mills. Other things you can almost always sell: sperm candles, brown soap, raisins, etc. So if you're looking at a voyage to Singapore, what are the sorts of things you might want to carry there to make a good deal? And he carries on. What will you get in Singapore? Trade of Singapore is divided into two seasons, the Bugis and the Junk season. Bugis season is when the Bugis traders arrive from the Eastern Archipelago. So he's talking about native boats following the seasonal monsoon patterns and bringing in specific stores that you can trade. So in this case, pepper, green coffee, tortoise shells, different medicines, etc., that you'll find in the season from August to November. The other half of the year is called the junk season. It's when you get junks, again, native craft, coming from China, Cochin Chinese, coming from the north and east, bringing sugar and rice. So, if you're in the other half of the year, you're going to find those cargoes are more common in Singapore. So what interests me, many things interest me about this, but one of the things that interests me most is this articulation of the way that Maine traders, Maine sea captains, Maine merchants were interfacing with local trade patterns all over the world and had to know about the monsoons, not just to sail with them, but had to know when seasonality of cargoes in different parts of the world in order to be successful businessmen. And that's what we see written out in this crib sheet, in this record of how to trade in the Far East that was written in the 1830s. Not the sort of thing you see a lot of in collections, but the sort of thing that can be very interesting when we do find them.